Hey, it's Noelle Bloom here, and welcome to Bloom TV. You're in the right place if you want to create a business that makes a difference and live a fabulous life. Are you living under a false identity? You know, many of us are living the life that we're supposed to be living, which is contributing to our main source of unhappiness in business and life. And if you've realized that who you're portraying yourself to be out into the world isn't quite who you are, and if you are ready to look within to find and discover your true authentic self, then this episode is for you. I'm going to sit down and talk with a very special guest today, and her name is Sophia Davis. Sophia is one of the UK's leading transformational life coaches and has a proven track record in getting down to the root of any problem in record time. And I can tell you right now that Sophia is one of the most insightful people that I know. Just one conversation with her will change the way you view the world at large. It will change the way you see yourself and also how you run your business. And she's going to share why she had to shut down her entire business to discover her deeper truth. And she's also going to share how you can break free from your current mold to find your true potential. So I'd love for you to join us in this conversation as we share how you can stop hiding behind your identity and discover who you are. So let's dive in. Sophia Davis, thank you so much for joining me today on Bloom TV. I'm so happy to have you today.
Thank you.
Where are you at right now? I see some trees and some bushes and sunshine.
I'm in a beautiful place called Holland Park in London, and I'm sitting by an ancient, beautiful tree, and it's just a gorgeous evening here, and I thought it would be nice to be in nature.
Yeah, I love that. It seems like anytime I'm feeling like I just need to feel grounded in my life, I love to go to Yosemite National Park, or even sometimes just going outside in the grass and kind of just walking barefoot, even though I'm like very clean and don't like to get dirty, but it's just like sometimes being in nature and getting fresh air and getting, my feet on the grass and just feeling connected. It always sort of just gives me a recharge, or even just the sunshine, right? When you're in the sun and you feel the warmth on your skin. Does that feel amazing?
It's completely rebalancing. Scientifically, it's rebalancing because we start to merge with the earth and the magnetic vibrations of the earth, and so we align. So naturally, we feel more grounded and centered and balanced. It's beautiful.
Yes. Yes, I love that. Well, thanks again for joining me today. And I've been really looking forward to this conversation because when the first time we talked with each other, I remember that you just blew me away with your perspective on your concept of unraveling the mind and the idea that some of us have a false perspective of who we are, and we sort of need to look within and recondition the mind, or you have a better way of saying that, but to really discover who we are underneath it all. And I think you have such a wonderful and insightful process of how to actually do that when we feel like maybe we're tied to an identity that's not truly us. So I'd love for us to get into that today. And how I'd like to start is by asking you, how did you first start your business and why?
So I was a business consultant, and I was helping everyone, just going into businesses. At the time that we were in a recession, I was supporting businesses to save money, but really I was working with individuals, and people would find me and they would come, and I was mentoring different students to be in PR teams and marketing teams and these kinds of things. And one day an opportunity came through for Look magazine, and one of my interns said to me, Sophia, there's an opportunity for a life coach in Look magazine. You have to do it. And I said to her, well, why would I do it? She's like, listen, you told me that you can do anything on this planet, that you set your mind to. And she's like, I'm challenging you. So I was like, okay.
A personal challenge taken, right?
Personal challenge. So I was like, okay, but but kind of rewind, let's say 7 or 8 years before that, I'd been a professional singer. and I had lost my voice. My vocal cords had hemorrhaged. And the reason I had set up my businesses in the first place is because I totally lost my identity when I was told I'd never sing again. So my whole career really started when I lost my own identity, and
Mm.
I wasn't able to speak for about 6 months. And in that time, I recognized that I had, a lot of problems, and I was deeply, deeply, deeply unhappy. So I started reading about psychotherapy and personal
Mhm.
development and spirituality and coaching. And so I had already studied for years and years and years. And what emerged from that is I realized that I loved learning. I
Yeah.
loved learning. I loved business. I loved creativity. I loved taking something, taking nothing and making it something. So this particular intern knew my history, she knew my
Mm.
story. So it didn't really come from nowhere. It came from a place that she already knew I had studied. She knew I was educated. She knew that my passion was really in helping people. But I had kind of settled for this job as a business consultant, which I was really, really great at,
Yeah.
but it wasn't my passion. So in a way, what she was doing is she was challenging me to live my passion. And
Mm.
she knew that it was slightly stretching for me. So in her saying that to me, of course, I had to apply for the position. And of course, I got it. And then once my name was in Look magazine as this life coach, I was like, well, I guess that's what I am now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that's really how it began.
Were you really close to your coworker?
Yes, I was I always have been very close to everyone that I work with.
Yeah.
Because when you work with people, you have a relationship, and you want that relationship to be as healthy as it can be and positive as it can be, because you spend a lot of time together,
Yeah. I love
so
that.
when
And
there is,
yeah, and the
yeah,
reason why I asked that is because sometimes we're settled in our life, and it takes another person's outside perspective who knows our backstory or knows a little bit about us, who can help nudge us in the right direction, or to sometimes see something in us that we don't quite see in ourselves. And I think it's very powerful that you had that relationship, so that sort of opened the door for you to kind of start to think bigger about your life.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, definitely. I mean, life is very synchronistic anyway, so people always say the right thing at the right time, or it might appear they've said the wrong thing, but it's always the right thing.
Yeah.
And it pushes us exactly where we need to go.
Definitely. So you had started your business. Is that when you started your business, actually life coaching?
Yeah, so that was 10 years ago. And that's when I started coaching. Because once I was in Look magazine, it didn't stop there. I got a radio show with the BBC. Then I got an article in Cosmo, and then Women's Fitness, and then PT on the Net, and then Hugo Boss asked me to do a big campaign for them, and then Go Ahead, and then etc. 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 It just kept going and going and going. So within 6 months, I had a waiting list.
Wow.
It was insane.
Wow, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
so and so I want to get into the parts that maybe where did so to give a little insight, you had eventually shut your business down, but I would love for you to lead into that transition point, or at what point did you start to feel like
Yes.
something wasn't quite right and you needed to make some adjustments in your life?
Yeah, so I was seeing some of the top entrepreneurs in the world. They really had everything. I was writing a book, I was making a TV show. It was great, on the surface. But what happened was, people would come, and we would go very, very to very, very deep places within them. But there was always this next. What's next? What's next? What's next? We get one thing. What are we setting next? What's our next goal? What are we doing next? What are we doing next? And one day I just sat down. I thought to myself, this can't be it. This cannot be it, because these people have everything and they're still not satisfied. They understood their mind, they understood what was happening, they were making success of themselves, they were manifesting and understanding the universe and working with all of the laws of creation and all of these kinds of things that we speak about, becoming aware, understanding about their mind and their behaviors and all of these different things, NLP, everything, how to work with issues when they come, but they were never ever satisfied. And the truth is that neither was I. And I had everything too. Here I was with this really beautiful business, a gorgeous apartment, amazing friends, everything that a person is supposed to want, I had. And yet there was this knowing inside of me, like, there is more than this. Like, this is not it, because these people are never satisfied, and neither am I. And so this is what led to this. I have to find out, what it is, because I could see that I was feeding an insatiable need that could never be fulfilled. And I wanted to know what the answer actually was. What was the deeper truth to us being human, and what was the deeper truth to, let's say, happiness. So that's when I shut everything down.
Yeah. Wow. So the idea of having this insatiable desire to want more and more, and I see this in many people. And when I think about the business women that on the internet sort of have it all, they've got the guy, they've got the house, they've got the car, they've got their child, they have a booming business, and many people have kind of came out and said, you know what, it feels like it's never enough, and they have to sort of readjust things, or maybe they cut off different
Yes.
offers, maybe they change their business direction, maybe they sell their house and downsize. So from your perspective, in your experience, how would someone go about actually taking a step to sort of figure out, okay, where am I? What life have I been living? What type of identity have I been
Mm.
attached to? Or how do they start to shed who they are, or who they think they currently are, to become who they truly are? And you can maybe lead into that by talking about how you transitioned from shutting your business down and actually talking about your self-discovery journey again as you tried to figure out what was the bigger purpose in this all.
Yeah. So it's a big, it's a big question. I mean, effectively, I just want to, if it's okay, I just want to kind of just go over something you said right at the beginning, which is that, some of us are living under an identity that, isn't really who we are, but actually it's all of us. There's maybe 1% of the population who actually know who they really are.
Yeah.
If we think back to a baby, for example, we come into this world, we're like, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, it's like quite an English saying, I think. But we know nothing. We're just awareness in a body. We're aware, we're looking, we're seeing. We don't know anything. We don't know that this is a tree behind me, or that I'm in a wood, or we know nothing. We're exploring. We're taking things for what they are. We don't have the boundary or the barrier of words or labels. And then what starts to happen is, as we go along, we hear, "Oh, Noelle's so sweet. Noelle's such a flirt. Noelle's a bit messy. Noelle's a bit clumsy.
Mm.
Noelle's a bit shy. Noelle's a bit da-da-da-da-da-da. Noelle, 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 Noelle." And one day you say, "Yeah?" And then suddenly you are this person called Noelle.
Mm.
And then by the time you're around, let's say 7, you actually believe that you're all those things you've been told you are. And you have all of the evidence of your former 7 years to tell you that that's true. So this is how you come to know yourself. You come to know yourself from what originally you've been told by the people that you respect around you. And then
Mm.
you live through that identity. That's a tree, that's a cup, that's a chair, that's a table. So we're no longer looking at a tree, we're just looking at the label of a tree. We no longer
Mm.
explore the tree. We're just taking for granted that's a tree, and we move on. So no longer are we really living life. We're living through our filters of the labels that everything's being given. So we're never
Mm.
discovering anything. We're just living through our mind's perception of what things are. We have no idea.
Mm.
We don't even really know anything about people or ourselves. We only know the idea we have that we've been told. So this is humanity. This is really what's happened. And then, of course, we grow up under the conditioning of, you go to school, you go to college or university, you get your degree, you get a good job, you become an entrepreneur, or you get a 9 to 5 or 9 to 9 or whatever it is these days, and
Yeah.
you meet a partner, you get married, you have kids, you always the next.
Mhm.
At school you're preparing for college, at college you're preparing for work, at work you're preparing for retirement. you know at school you're preparing for a boyfriend, then you're or a girlfriend, or then you're preparing for marriage, then you're preparing for kids. It's always the next thing. So we're living underneath this. We're living underneath these ties. So what's happening is, because everyone thinks that's so normal, we never stop to question anything. So of course that's naturally what we do, and we're told that our potential is have a nice house, have a nice car, have freedom. Freedom being lots of money, lots of holidays, and lots of nice things.
Mm.
But actually, that's not freedom at all. That is freedom inside of a huge constraint of what we've been told is possible for us. So just going back to what you were saying about, identity, first we need to see the identity we've been given. So that comes through being aware of who we believe we are. So
Mm.
examining what our beliefs are about ourselves and who we. So what I did was I left my life again.
Yeah.
My identity had already been stripped when I lost my voice, but then slowly but surely I built up a new one. Now I was not a singer, but now I was an entrepreneur, a
Mm.
successful one. Everyone likes this entrepreneur, and this entrepreneur's fun and goes out and has a good time. And, so suddenly I was now a new identity, because when I lost my last identity, I didn't know who I was. And rather than just sitting with the reality that I didn't know who I was and discovering, my mind very quickly built a new identity. And then I lived under another prison. And that's what everybody is doing all the time. So I left everything. I went to India, and I asked myself, well, who would know? Who would know the answer
Yeah.
to this question? And I decided to sit with some enlightened beings,
Mm.
because it made sense to me. Who is it that's apparently the highest, most intelligent being on this planet? Well, it's got to be an enlightened being, a being who knows everything. So I did that, and slowly I was broken down.
Oh, wow.
Piece by piece by piece by piece, literally torn to shreds. Examined everything, not just my thoughts and beliefs, not just my ideas about myself and about life, but my behaviors, down to how I speak, how I walk, how I move, how I eat, how I communicate. Literally everything was put under a magnifying glass until it all just collapsed. And then from that, I I saw something far greater than we've been told exists for us. And since then, I've been, supporting really others to explore not just their mind's potential, but human potential, a potential that is beyond the mind, that doesn't require us to manipulate the mind or control the mind or to control ourselves, but actually to fundamentally come back to that baby, that pure aware state where we're exploring life again with no boundary or restriction about who we are and what we can do. Does
Mm.
that answer your
Yeah.
question?
Oh, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And you went into so much detail and depth. And that's why I love talking to you, because I feel like you take it to a whole nother level than I hear many other people talking, because many times when we're talking about, being on this treadmill where we're never satisfied, we're never truly fulfilled, we're just kind of running after the next thing after another. And I've definitely been in that position to where one win happens or something happens, and then it's like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? And so I've
Right.
been in that position many times
Yes.
over and over and over. And I'm just hearing how you feel like we should be breaking that cycle as far as thinking about our identity and what type of jacket do we have on, or who are we underneath hiding from
Yes.
the world and who we are. And I just love that
Yes.
idea. And I remember the last time I talked to you, and as we were talking about the identity and sort of kind of coming out, and you talked about unraveling the mind and what that means. And I'd love for you to get into that too. But this idea that we are sort of conditioned to be a certain person, to have that identity, and to kind of be shackled to that. And I do agree that it limits our freedom to be, to think, and to enjoy life,
Absolutely.
and to be
Yeah.
fulfilled.
Yeah, and you just reminded me, thank you, coming back to the insatiable need. What I realized was and is that we're taught to strive for happiness outside of ourselves. We're taught we're a consumer's market, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we're taught to consume, we're taught to live for the next experience, and that's what equates to happiness. But unfortunately, experiences come and go. I mean, you literally can't hold on to anything, because an experience comes and then it leaves. And if we are dependent upon that to be okay, then we're not really living a winning game, because it's volatile. Things are up and down all of the time. So what I found was that what I had, and it sounds very cliche and I'm aware of that, but what I found was I needed nothing and I needed no one. And that didn't mean that I couldn't have. It meant that the place from which I went to reach was different, because no longer was I reaching outward because I needed, but because it was something I genuinely desired. No longer was I reaching outward because I thought something out there was going to make me happy, but I was reaching out there because it was something that would make my heart sing. So the whole orientation from where you come from is different. So I'm pleased you mentioned that, because that was really the key. The key was that no longer was I dependent on anything in the outside world to fulfill me. And it was in that moment that the insatiable need dropped for me
Mm-hmm.
and my client. And it didn't mean we had less, we had more, but it came from a place of deep contentment. And even if everything disappeared and everything left today, it would make absolutely no difference to my peace, which
Wow,
is
that's
actually what we want, right?
yeah, and I think that's easier said than done. I think that to get to that point, it takes a lot of self-awareness. It takes a lot of
Yes,
mental work. It takes a lot
yes,
of reconditioning the mind. But I think one of the first steps that we can take is to be
yes,
aware that many of us, like you said, many of us are wearing an identity that's not ours. And we have to
yes,
go on that personal self-discovery journey to realize
yes,
who we are, and that's the first
right.
step. And I think that once we take that, it can start opening doors. But
Absolutely.
yeah, and then something that you mentioned, um is as far as us and our identity, is I feel like many people attribute their happiness with the success of their business, and I have definitely been in that road before, where we feel like, um if business is going great, you're happy. The moment
Hmm.
business is going bad, it just takes you take a big hit in your fulfillment and your happiness. And I haven't heard many people have a conversation about not connecting fully, or having that connection with your business and happiness. And like you said, if you were stripped away from everything, you know that your happiness is within. And I think that for many
Right.
entrepreneurs, we rely on our businesses to give us that 100% fulfillment.
Yeah, and you're also dependent upon your business to know who you are, because we define ourselves by what we do and we define ourselves by what we have. And this is the reason I said it's not many of us, it's most of us are
Yeah.
living under this false identity. Because when you ask somebody, who are you, they'll tell you what they do for work. They'll
Yes.
tell you about their family. They'll tell you about their hobbies, the things they enjoy, which is, of course, all relevant, but it isn't who we are.
Yeah.
And this is the confusion, because there's so much investment in what we
Hmm.
do. There's so much investment in what we have. There's so much investment in what other people think of us. So we're not living freely. We're spending our lives people pleasing.
Hmm.
99% of people are doing that. We're spending our lives accommodating, compromising, and not being deeply honest about what it is we want. Not we don't know what we want. If we were deeply honest with ourselves, most people don't really know what they want. We're taught not to question. If we have a look at, preschool,
Yeah.
we're taught not to question the teachers, not to question authority, not to question what we're told. And actually, the first step is the question, the inquiry of who am I really? Why am I here? What am I here for? Where did I come from? These are fundamental questions that as a human being, we should be asking.
Yeah.
How can we discover if we don't ask the question?
Mm. Yeah. I think it definitely starts with that question. And something that I've experienced, and I know many people watching this have experienced, it's sort of like going through a little cycle, because I can look back even 6, 7 years ago, who that identity that I was wearing, I wore it for a while, and then like what you said, you had lost your voice, and then you kind of found a new identity with it as being an entrepreneur. And I feel like as I've evolved in my business, in my life, I'm constantly not refining my identity, but
Hmm.
shedding what is not me anymore. Because as we grow in life, in business, and we accept new challenges, I feel like we get closer to being who we are at the core. And it all starts with that question that you mentioned.
It absolutely does. And, you make such a valid point, because even our identities we can't hold on to. First, we're someone's child, then we're someone's mother or father, someone's boyfriend, someone's
Yeah,
girlfriend,
yeah,
someone's lover, someone's boss,
yeah,
someone's employee, someone's grandma, someone's grandpa. Our identity is constantly changing as well. It's even that we can't hold on to. So it's like, well,
yeah.
what is consistent?
Yes.
What is it within us that doesn't change, that doesn't leave,
Yeah.
that is consistent? What is the one consistent force, and why this is relevant to people and their businesses? Because when you start to establish this, all of the restraints and constraints that you put upon yourself disappear. They
Mm,
dissolve. No longer do you hesitate about doing something you want to do.
yeah.
No longer do you procrastinate. No longer do you waste your time or compromise with things that really aren't aligned with who you are. You live only with what is true for you. And in that, everything has a different sense around it. There's a certain freedom about it. People are magnetized towards you because everyone knows you know something. They can feel it, they can see it, they can sense it. It's a sense of being self assured, of knowing yourself,
Yeah.
and this is magnetic. It's a magnetic quality.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the most challenging part for me personally is realizing when it's okay to let go of that identity and sort of bringing that self-awareness back. Because I think that at the core, I'm a very self-aware person. I ask a lot of questions. I try to get deep underneath every why. If I want something,
Hmm.
why do I want this? Why again and why again? And I just kind of try to get down to the root of my
Yeah.
authentic self and what's really driving me in my work, in my relationships, my business, and all my other desires in life. And for me, just thinking about the desires and having to check things off and say, okay, do I really want this? Or is it this part of me that should want this? And I think that through experience, I've gotten better at realizing what action or decision was tied to that identity, and being able to let go of that and be aware of what I
Hmm.
really want. And I think that many people are wearing that jacket. I keep saying a jacket because it's so visual for me that you have something on that you're not really opening up and taking off. So from your perspective, are you saying that the first step, let's say someone has realized that, you know what, I am wearing this identity, I've invested a lot of
Hmm.
time, money, energy, let's say my brand, I've invested a lot of money in who I am and what the world sees. And upon someone realizing that that person is not them anymore,
Hmm.
what for you, what do you think is the very first step that someone would need to take to
Yeah.
um to get back to who they are, or to actually discover that? Is it self-awareness?
It is self-awareness. I
Mhm.
mean, the first step really, for me, is it's about a deep honesty with yourself. You can lie to the world,
Yeah.
you can pretend, you can wear your masks and your jackets that don't really fit you anymore. But when you look at them in the mirror at the end of the day, and you're looking in your eyes, eye to eye,
Yeah.
you cannot lie. And it's about being deeply honest.
Mm,
Deeply honest. It's like the rawest kind of honesty that you can imagine. And then, of course, it's beginning to become self-aware, particularly with your thinking.
mm,
Watch your thoughts, sit, meditate. And people, when we talk about meditation, they think, oh God, I have to stop my mind working. How are you going to do that? But actually, it's not the case at all. Your mind doesn't have to stop thinking at all. What we're doing is we're building a witness presence. So we are becoming aware of our mind. So your mind can be as crazy as it wants to be. It can be as noisy as it wants to be, and as fast as it wants to be. And you are the one who is watching. And it's beginning to explore this one who is capable of watching the mind, who is the one that is aware of their thinking, who is the one that is aware of their feelings, who is the one who is capable of enjoying themselves. Who is that one? Who is the one aware they're not feeling great today?
Yeah.
You know, it's starting, do you understand? It's starting to become familiar with the observer, the one who is actually aware. Because if I told you to come and see me and I asked you to put your life story in a book on a bookshelf with all of your ideas and concepts, there is still somebody walking inside. And who is that? So it's just beginning to become aware that we're not our thinking, we're not our beliefs, we're not our behaviors. And then from there, doors open, as you said. And of course, it helps to come and, you know, see somebody who is specializing in this kind of work, somebody who has been there themselves. It's not really enough to go to somebody who has all of this stuff as a concept, but
Yes.
somebody who lives it and breathes it. You know, it's the
Mm,
awakening to a new reality. It's awakening to a new way of being. It's awakening to a new life.
I
You know,
love
so it
that.
always helps to be with someone who has done that,
I love that.
and
And
they'll pull you
there,
right in, you know?
yeah, there's something that, yeah, I mean, I could just listen to you forever until the end of time, because everything that you say, like I said, is so deep, and it gives me so much insight into not only myself, but in even what I see in others and how to help other people. But something that you said that really just captured me, and we talked about this in our last conversation, is that many people say you are your thoughts, right? You hear that
Hmm.
in many people talking about that, right? Spiritual leaders, personal development, you know, gurus, or these experts that say you are your thoughts. But you take a different perspective on that. Can you talk or go into detail
Hmm.
on why we aren't our thoughts? Do you agree that we are not our thoughts?
Absolutely. I mean, if we think about thought, like where does it even come from?
Yeah.
Like the next thought that you think, are you choosing?
Mm,
Are you aware of it? So there has to be this person who is aware. There has to be something that is aware of something else, or you wouldn't be aware. For example, if I was the sunshine, I wouldn't be aware of it. I'm aware of the sun because I'm a person. So I can see the sun. So there is me and there is the sun. It's the same with with the thoughts, right? There is a me who is aware of my thought. So if you think about the color red and you just keep thinking the color red, 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 there is something that is aware that you keep thinking the color red, right? So if you were that thought, there would be nothing that was aware of it. You
mm,
wouldn't have the awareness to know you were thinking something. You would simply be the color red, or you would simply be the thought. You wouldn't be aware of the thought. So if we were our thoughts, we wouldn't be aware of them. We know we are, so we must not be our thoughts. And the same goes for feeling. You know, we are aware we don't feel great today, or we are aware we feel fabulous today. Or who is aware?
yeah.
If
Yeah.
we were our feelings, we wouldn't be aware. We would simply be the feeling.
Right. And to bring it back to us being tied to an identity that's not truly us, if I think about self-sabotaging thoughts and feelings
Mm.
and emotions and the realities that
Yeah.
that isn't us, right? Because
Yeah,
sometimes we wear
absolutely.
emotions, or we maybe talk down about ourselves. And I always tell people, you want to be very kind to yourself and talk to yourself as if you were a
Hmm.
friend. And
Yes.
let's just say, for example, if someone was, you know, working in their business, and maybe a launch didn't go so well, or, oh, you know, I'm a
Yeah.
failure, I
Mm.
suck at this, I'm not going to be good at this, and
We've all said that, right?
yeah, yeah, of course. And we're not that. And so I love that you made that distinction, that we are not our thoughts, we are not fully our emotions, and there's a different way
No.
to look at it. And I think before in our conversation I was saying that having that philosophy makes it easier for us to kind of step outside of ourselves and kind of look in to kind of get a better
Mm.
perspective of what's going on in our lives, and not to be stuck inside of our own head and being
Hmm.
attached to the thoughts that we have about ourselves, because sometimes they're good and sometimes
That's
they're not
right.
so good.
Well, I mean, they're all useful because all of our thoughts are telling us something about what we believe ourselves to be, not what we
Mhm.
are. And the only mistake is that we identify with them. So the thoughts are very useful, you know, because they're telling us all of the beliefs that we're holding that are not true. And all of our so-called negative feelings are also really positive, because what they do is they tell you everything you think about yourself that isn't true. You know, if what you were thinking was true, it wouldn't feel so absolutely awful, right?
Yeah.
It feels bad because it's so far away from the truth.
Mm,
That's why it feels bad. So to call them negative doesn't make any sense to me, because they're telling us something that just simply isn't true. If it was true, it would feel fine, it would feel comfortable. And we know that when we say nasty things to ourselves and we feel awful, that's not comfortable. That's deeply uncomfortable.
mm.
So, of course, it's uncomfortable because it's not the truth.
Wow, I love that perspective, and it's just amazing talking to you because it starts to make me look at my life in a whole new way that I've never looked at it before. It's just like a whole different angle. And I think that through having this conversation with you, I'm able to look at different areas of my life and say, who am I really?
Right.
And what are those desires? And what truly makes me fulfilled that isn't attached to this identity that I've been wearing as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, as a woman, and just
Yes.
tied to that. So it's really it kind of breaks the shackles off of
Yes.
myself, and I think it would
Yes.
give many people watching this idea that they can be free from their past. They can be free from any perception or any identity that has been placed upon them that they've
Yeah, of
actually picked
course.
up. And I think it's a way of shedding in a way who we maybe used to be, or
Hmm.
stepping into the new version of yourself that
Well,
allows
it's
you to see
it.
the world in a new way.
Well, it's stepping into true freedom.
Mm,
Freedom with no restriction. Like, it's liberation. It's ultimate liberation. You know, that's, I didn't mean to cut you off there, sorry. It's
yeah.
ultimate, it's stepping into ultimate liberation, because it's no longer running away from yourself. It's no longer running away from life, because
Mm,
whatever is here. And if we're no longer afraid of our thoughts, and if we're no longer afraid of our feelings, imagine the liberation that that creates for you. If
mm,
you never have to run away from yourself, if you don't need to avoid feeling bad, if you don't need to avoid what you think, if you don't need to change your thinking, if you don't need to change your reality to be okay, like, imagine how liberating that would be,
yeah.
because we're always trying to feel better. Everything we do is to feel better,
Mm,
to have more, to feel better. But what if it was okay just to feel how we felt? Like, what a sigh of relief we could take. What a peace would come in that. What if we didn't mind that we didn't feel good? Imagine the peace that would arise in that.
yeah.
Like, what if we didn't need to hide from people when we felt bad? What if we didn't need to manipulate our situations or other people just to feel better about ourselves? Like, imagine the differences in our quality of relationships. Like, it changes everything.
Yes, yes, I agree. And I think you said all that very beautifully to kind of get the distinction as to what type of impact this can have on our lives if we chose to think that way. And um, in terms of our work in the world, our businesses, so when we are aware, when we've dropped that identity of who we are supposed to be, when we start seeing our thoughts and our emotions and our feelings in this new way, what type of impact does that have on our businesses, our work in the world, whatever purpose, meaningful work we're doing, and our lives? How do things start to change? And you did touch upon this a little bit, but maybe more explicitly when we actually look at our lives in this with this new perspective. What does that do for our businesses and our lives?
Well, it certainly buys us a lot of freedom to choose in a way that is more aligned. But if
Mm,
we have businesses and we employ people, it changes as well our businesses and the way that we make our business decisions, the way we relate to other people
yes.
within our businesses. It becomes a lot more conscious. It becomes a lot more healthy. It becomes a lot more considerate. Of course, we're more aware of ourselves and our environment. So we take things less personally. We take full responsibility for the way that we feel. So no longer are we projecting our stuff onto everyone else and trying to avoid rejection or avoid humiliation, or we're just going for it, we're just
Yeah.
taking the steps, we're just fearlessly moving forward, and in that we become hugely successful because we're just following our path, we're living our passion, we're living our joy, we're living our inspiration, we're not holding our hearts back, we're just fully 100% going for it, you know, showing up, being bright, being big, being bold, you know, daring to speak our truth, daring to be ourselves. It's a new paradigm. You know, we are the change, we're a revolution, you know, we're changing things. And this is really what I believe the new kind of conscious entrepreneur is really about. You know, it's not just about changing things for herself, but changing things for the world around her, you know, through taking responsibility.
Oh, wow. The conscious entrepreneur, that could be a whole conversation in itself. And I think it goes back to being self-aware and
Yes.
bringing a level of consciousness to your business, who you're working with, why you work with people, what you're offering in the world, what charities you partner up with, and what relationships we're in. And I think that at the core of everything, our happiness and our fulfillment are tied to how self-aware we are and what our desires are. And I think that that's the key to everything. And I always recommend, if you're having a problem in your relationship, in your business, in your life, always look within and find the source of where that alignment is not aligned. And usually, more times than not, you can find that broken link by looking within, not necessarily external things, right? Externally, sometimes we have a problem. We look outside ourselves. We look at our relationships, our partners, our business, but we know that when you turn within and you ask those questions and you really shed that shell or stop hanging on to old ideas and beliefs and old mindsets, you can start to begin to see how to connect that gap or bridge that gap between the unfulfilled self and the fulfilled self. And I think just having this conversation with you has been amazing, and your perspective just blows me away. So I want to thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you. Good timing. It's getting dark here now in London.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, it was a pleasure having you.
I could talk to you forever. There's so much to say, because we could talk about reflections, we could talk about the universe, we could talk about what evolution really means, what our purpose really is. We could talk about why we're really here. I mean, we could literally talk all night. We haven't even scraped the tiny surface.
I know, but this is a good introduction.
It's a good intro.
Yes. So thanks again, Sophia. And for those of you watching, let's continue the discussion. Head over to noellebloom.com and leave a comment. Let us know what type of challenges you faced as you hold on to an identity that may not be you anymore. And was there anything that you're taking away from this conversation that you can apply to your business and life today? So let me know. If you like this video, please subscribe and share with your friends. Thank you so much for watching. As you're out there doing your work in the world, remember to have fun, live free, and feel fabulous. And I'll catch you next time on Bloom TV. Bye. Are you on the VIP list? If not, you're missing out. Head to noellebloom.com now and sign up to get free exclusive content to help you create a business and live fabulous.